All right, so we are going to start by talking about today's solar climate. There's a lot obviously happening. Solar, is extremely competitive. There's obviously still a lot of opportunity there, and it's seasonal, right? So you only have so much time to get this lead converted, maximize the revenue on it. How is that? Talk to us a little bit more about how that's even more true today.
Yeah, so solar's always been tricky, right? You're doing construction, there's financing, and people don't necessarily understand the product to its full potential. So you would think this new climate bill comes out, the IRA, so extends this tax credit till 2032 at 30%. It's a really big credit. So we were all thrilled about it in the solar space. We were expecting phones to be ringing off the hook, and it just didn't happen, right? So there still isn't a lot of new interest from the consumer about going solar. From all of us solar companies, we're thrilled. And it seems bipartisan. Both sides of the aisle seem to be pro, renewables. So why aren't people ringing off the phones? Why are we still having to chase them? There's a lot of different reasons. Some of them are they don't like how the house looks with panels, and the others are maybe they don't understand how it works. The other thing you got to look at when it comes to solar is the changing demographics of America. You've got boomers no longer the largest homeowners, it's millennials, and behind that you have Gen Z. So when you're marketing to a millennial and a Gen Z, they don't fall for banner ads. They don't they don't pick up cold calls. They're a lot more sophisticated in how they want to be marketed to. So you've really got to reach them at the way that they want to be reached. And that comes with technology, and it comes with some sophistication. On top of all of that, you've got some of the most difficult dialing and text messaging laws ever in the history of America. Lawsuits popping up all over. This is the sun rush. Less than 4% of eligible homes have solar. So it means 96% of the population who's eligible has not gone solar yet. So wow. It's a great time to be in solar, right? So people are looking at this early adoption, the government sponsoring it, the bills that are available. It's a great time to go solar, but we still haven't seen the consumer demand just rise in a huge amount, right? So you've got to be smart in how you market to people.
That's I didn't realize that millennials have taken over in terms of
largest homeowner group, and it's interesting. Like I have a friend in direct mail, and they told me that they love getting mail, millennials and Gen Z, right? So the older population was mailed to too much and fell for the clicking and the calling. The younger generation's a little more sophisticated, and they're liking kind of some of the old retro marketing on top of knowing how to avoid banner ads and spam calls, right? So they're sophisticated, and in some ways they're a little retro and they want to go backwards.
Got it. So like we talked about, selling, let's go to the next slide. At the end of the day, anybody that's been doing this for a long time knows that, selling solar, whether, not being easy is one thing, but getting prospects on the phone and closing them, no matter what industry in, is always a challenge. Like you said, especially with laws changing all the time, carriers doing things. These are the common issues that anybody that's doing outbound marketing has a challenge with. So I'd love to discuss kind of what's working for you specifically. What is the formula? And I know it's not black or white, but getting consumers on the phone and having that competitive edge, Heather, that you've been able to have the success that you're having. I'd love to start with the first one with omni-channel, but we talk about it all the time. I want to know how you use it. Is there a specific way you test, but how do you use calling, texting, emailing? Talk to us a little bit more about what's for you.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of different verticals in lead gen over those last 22 years, mortgage, auto, healthcare, a little bit of everything. And solar is kind of a unique beast, I would say. You do need to omni-channel market to them 100%. There's 30,000 plus solar companies in the nation, but there's no brand. So when you're walking down the street, if you say, name 3 solar companies, the only one they can ever name is Tesla, right? Which isn't really a huge part of the market share in solar anyways. So consumers have choices because there's all these solar companies, but they know nothing about them. So, and unfortunately, most of solar comes from door knocking and telemarketing. The number one way most people get leads is door knocking. And then number 2 is telemarketing, right? So you have all these consumers consumers out there with tons of options, no knowledge of solar, and no brand that they're really familiar with. So with that, I think like two unique things comes. The first is you have to find the right customer to market to, and the second is you have to get them to respond to your marketing, and that's where omni-channel comes in. So you know, it's a very, well, 94% of the nation that can have solar doesn't. It is a very niche customer you're looking for. So there's blanket marketing and target marketing. Blanket marketing, you might be able to dial a list heavy and try to screen out people. Targeted marketing means you're finding the people that are eligible and marketing to them. So because of the laws that change, because of spam likely, because of all those other ways, gone are the long days, as we all know, where you can buy a list and beat it up. That's just not how marketing works anymore. So I think you need to look at, how do I target the right customers? So you can generate your own leads digitally. A lot of people use third parties like myself. Convoso is a third party, Colossus is a third party digital marketing agency that markets to solar. You can use high intent data if you're small. You can use lower intent data and high intent if you're large, or you can door knock. But the question is, how do you get the right person? So there's a lot of new technologies, including some that Colossus is building, that will allow you, before you purchase a lead, to understand if the roof has viability, right? So you can pre-ping and make decisions on what's my max ROI, does their credit work, right? These are technologies within solar that integrate into Convoso and other softwares that would give you information on the consumer that you can roll out before you even purchase the lead. So the first thing is getting the right person on the phone. So that might look like, there's a number of different products, including our own, like Leads Conduit, that you can pre-ping and figure out their credit score. And if they're just not credit worthy, you know you're not going to be able to sell a financed solar panels to them. So the first thing is, how do I get the right person on the phone? That's the very first question. How do you get the right data source? Traditionally, we just look at zip and are they a homeowner? Those are usually the filters. And is their bill amount high, right? Do they have shade? So there's kind of those 4 questions you have when you buy a lead. There's a lot more sophisticated ways now of figuring out if that customer is going to be a good customer for you. The second thing is, how do you get them to respond to your marketing? And that's what you're talking about, Nima. It's really about, you have to meet them at their level, which means if it is, and this is something we'll talk about a little bit later too, but understanding your ideal customer profile. If you're marketing in Texas, I found this out the hard way. Don't talk about clean energy. We had some scripting. It's like, whoa, Obama's in and clean energy, and we were destroyed. If you're in Vermont, totally fine to talk about clean energy. So knowing what your content of your marketing is very important to match your ideal customer profile. But when it comes to omni-channel, like I said, we've done reports, and then basically what we found is after call attempt 8, we almost never, it was 0% likelihood to get a sale. So what that tells us, a call attempt 1 to call attempt 8 is really important. And so we're going to sprinkle some texting in there to see if they respond that way. We might try conversational AI to see if they're going to respond that way. We might do a phone call in the middle of that. We'll get to know our algorithm of how we're going to use omni-channel to get us the best results. And this is the unfortunate part. Every data source performs differently. So you need a different algorithm for every single data source to make sure you're getting your max result. So the process would really be, we have a new data source. Is it high intent, low intent? What states are we marketing in? And then we would put together a process of how to omni-channel market to them.
Let me ask you, you said something really important, right? 8 after 8 attempts.
Yes.
Are you saying that's generally speaking where you, high intent, low intent doesn't matter, or talk us a little bit about the number?
Great question. So if it's an exclusive lead, we can get sales after a certain amount of time. So one of the great things about Convoso is there is a report in there that will tell you, the call log report that will tell you all of your sales and at what call attempt they happen, right? So what I've learned is if it's an exclusive high intent lead, I can call it a little bit longer and spread it out a little bit further. If it's a semi-exclusive lead, it was sold 4 times. That means there's 4 other companies calling. So if I'm calling 8 times and 4 other companies are calling 8 times, they've been called 24 times, right? At that point, they're not happy people. So if it's a low intent lead, it's even worse, because low intent leads might be sold in multiple verticals, right?
So So is there a certain rough range of attempts you've seen best practice for low intent versus high intent, maybe that you can share with the audience? Anything specific like that?
Yeah, so I would say other things I want to say first about low intent is that I don't have as good as a result with text messaging, right? Because they're getting multiple verticals or they're getting text by multiple people. So the best advice I would give you on low intent is speed to lead. If you get there first, you're most likely to get the sale. I don't usually text low intent data. High intent, you can take high intent exclusive is kind of your best, right? You can take a very slow, great customer journey, text, just checking in again, seeing if you want to quote, maybe you want to offer them some information, a link to your lookbook, right? Hey, take a look at these other solar panel installations. You can really have a beautiful customer journey on high intent exclusive. High intent semi-exclusive, it's still speed to lead. You want to get them on the phone first. But what I can tell you from best practices is on the high intent exclusive, you can probably call 10, 12, 15 times over a period of time, right? Very gently, a nice soft algorithm. On semi-exclusive, it works like this. Everyone attacks in the beginning. Like, I mean, I've actually for major big companies set their dialers for them, and it is attack mode, right? Get them on the phone. And then you space it out a little bit more nicely, because what happens is all 4 companies are calling a lot that first day, and then they'll call a lot, half that the second day, and then like maybe 2 days, then they'll rust 1 day, then they'll call in the AM, then they'll call in the PM. That's kind of what happens. But if you arrest that data, they've got quotes from the other 3 guys, and you have a really good product, it makes sense to call again 2 weeks from them, because the other people stopped berating them with phone calls, right? And again, in that scenario, I would be using omni-channel. I might be sending an email. If I know I'm more competitive than the other companies on price or on product, I might also be sending emails in there. Hey, I know you were reaching out. You probably spoke to some companies. Let me show you our panels, or let me show you what makes, whatever company, Sun 123 better than the competitors.
And when we're talking about, so we just talked about omni-channel texting, calling, just the whole combination of things. But when we're talking about just the dialing part of it, are there sequences, or what is the dialing strategy specifically that you work with on that first day or that second day? And then you mentioned some of that. Can you go a little deeper on that specifically?
Yes, so this is kind of when I consult or step into any call center that I'm consulting on with dialing strategy, people want to set it and forget it, and that's always been it's been the challenge, right? So we saw that survey. A lot of people have 10 plus lead providers. The data just doesn't work the same. So your dialing strategy has to be specific to the source and even real time. So what I mean by that is, like, sometimes I'll have a source and I know it's a good source and I've set my algorithm and everything's going, but they got a flood of opt-ins from Florida and Florida's not converting for me. I need to see that in real time to adjust my algorithm and dial. So there should be somebody watching it. And as technology advances, I really believe this will be AI. I hope Convoso is the first one to get there. But right now, in real time, you have to be watching. So my dialing strategy would be know your lead source, right? So this is low intent and it's in these states and it's semi-exclusive. I'm going to have an algorithm for that. This is high intent, it's exclusive, and it's in my best states. I'm going to have an algorithm for that. So the strategy needs to go like this. My high intent stuff needs to pop into the front of my hopper immediately. I need to call that within seconds, because guess what? Sunrun, Momentum, Sunpro, these massive call centers, 400 or 500 seats, they're going to get that. They're going to get there in seconds. So I need my high intent stuff to go straight to the front of my hopper. And then I need to set a appropriate algorithm, which looks something like this. Call in immediately, call again 2 minutes later, space it out 15, an hour, and then AM, PM, right? So you're going to put some sort of algorithm in there based on what you know about the data. After that, you're going to watch it on a list conversion report in real time. You're going to have a dashboard and you're going to say, is this working? And what I always try to explain to people is, because data changes, and here's why data changes. I can tell you because I own a marketplace. Say I'm selling the lead 3 times, and then all of a sudden a big buyer comes in and is a 4th leg. It's going to change what your conversion is, because now there's more competitors. A lot of SIPs, we say it's semi-exclusive, but we only have 1 buyer there today. So the lead might be working great for you, and then all of a sudden another big buyer comes into your market, and now it truly is semi-exclusive. And so the data is going to start performing differently for you as you're going through the day. So if you're not watching in real time on a dashboard as well, the source that was once converting for you super great suddenly stops tanking, and you have it on an old algorithm. So it does require a level of sophistication.
And see, you're I feel like the master of this list conversion report. We've talked about it before in terms of how you manage it. It looked like insanity to me what you were doing before, but turning things on and off, on and off. But tell us more about that part of how you manage the day.
I know. So people think I'm crazy because it's what's really cool about most technology is you can set it and forget it to optimize it. But what's tricky for people to understand is data doesn't perform the same always. Like for us, like for example, there's a hurricane in Florida, right? You would think that would go bad for us, but people are locked in their house, so they're taking our phone calls, right? So it goes good for us. And we see that on a list conversion report in real time. We start seeing like how many leads does it take to handle to get to sale, and it changes all the time, every day, based on a number of different things across the area. So the first thing is you need to look at your lead source and write the appropriate algorithm or process for omnichannel. The second thing is you need to monitor it in real time to make sure it makes sense. The third thing is you have to get granular. States don't perform the same in solar. Everybody knows Florida, Texas converts very well, Pennsylvania very well, California, Jersey, New York, really hard states to get solar sold in. So you have to kind of really understand your demographics, really understand your data sources, and then watch it in real time and make the adjustments as they go. I want to say, I know it's a little further down here that we're going to talk about it, but one of the things that's really important is zip filters in solar. So if you're in multiple states, what we'll see is certain states performing at certain times, or say we're trying to load balance a schedule, which means we have too many appointments in Houston, not enough appointments in Dallas. You can turn on a zip filter, turn on all of your data, and load balance your solar queue. And that's another really important thing in your dialing strategy, because it's not just important to get someone to say yes, but you actually have to have someone run to the appointment. So what we see a lot of times in solar is you get overbooked or underbooked, and then you end up no call, no showing your appointments because you got too many appointments in one area and not enough in another area. So load balancing your SKU with zip filters is another dialing strategy you would use to get more sales at the end of the day. One of the things I noticed when I went into a major solar company, one of the largest solar companies in the nation, is that the number one reason when they weren't getting a sale was because we were internal no showing. We weren't showing up for our own appointments. And that was because we were just dialing all the data, and wherever the appointment sat, we just put them on a schedule, and it wasn't feasible for people to get there. So if you're trying to increase sales with dialing strategy, you can load balance your market by using zip filters.
Looks like you got to do a lot of things at the same time to get it right.
If you want to be the best, you've got to use that brain power quite a bit.
Totally. And we talked about a little bit how you got to say different things depending on which state you're calling. I want to talk a little bit about dynamic scripting, which it's not just for that purpose, but also for compliance purposes, right? And a lot of other things. So what I want to kind of mention about that is you want to really personalize the conversation as much as possible per state. You want to also use it for training new agents to guide them through the conversation. So have the ability for a script to be dynamic. You want to maybe use a different script for high intent versus low intent leads, depending on how you want to approach it. So I'll let you tell us a little bit more about that specifically, Heather, but I want to say how important it is to personalize that, because like you said, if you say clean energy in Texas, well, versus another state, they might, approach it differently. So talk to us a little bit about how you use dynamic scripting, all the different ways, and what it even means, dynamic scripting. I mentioned it, but I want to hear from your words.
Yeah, so this actually, the first time we realized how important this was, I was changing a company off of a old phone system into Convoso, and one had static scripting, which just meant it was a script and a form fill, and then you guys had dynamic scripting, and it gave us a major lift in two really big places. The first one is compliance, right? And if you guys don't know this, it's a sad fact to hear, but like almost every single state has laws regarding telemarketing. Some require you to give a 4-digit code after your name, some require to give you a physical location. So if you really truly want to be compliant with every single state that you're in, it took away the compliance stuff. TCPA language has to be read, all sorts of things need to be done on the phone call. So the first major benefit was ensuring our compliance. Dynamic scripting means if you ask one question, there's a tree. So if they say yes, you're going to go to this next part of the script. If they say no, you're going to go to this next part of the script. So that's where the second part really came in. if you combine dynamic scripting and some variation of AI to listen to calls, there are so many more things you can do to close sales. So for example, if you're using dynamic scripting and you have a dynamic scripting and AI, and you have your top rep, and somehow he's doing 20 more sales than everyone else, and you can't figure it out, the AI can listen in and say, hey, this guy is using the sentence over and over again, or this woman is using these rebuttals over and over again, and they're resulting in sales, right? So this is big data here. So things I've been able to do is say, for example, if you mention clean energy in Texas, the likelihood of a result in sale was like almost 0. And we were also getting hung up on question 2. If you mention it in Vermont, it was increasing our sales by X amount. So what you'll start learning over time, first with the AI, is what works. You can A/B test your rebuttals, right? So it's like if someone says, this is one of the great ones I got from A/B testing rebuttals. Someone says, I'm not interested, and they say, oh, great, so you did look into solar. What was it about it you didn't like, right? What a great rebuttal. That's what a top salesperson was using over and over again, and the system was able to hear that and say, every time I hear I'm not interested, and this is the rebuttal spoken, the result of sale is X. Every time I hear I'm not interested and the rebuttal is something different, I hear X. And it was like a 4X close when they did that. So you start learning, hey, my top salespeople, things are really working. What's the scripting they're using? Now that you have that scripting, you've A/B tested it, you put it into your dynamic scripting. So there'll be a spot in the script where they'll say, this is Heather, I'm calling from Solar 123, just about your recent inquiry. And the person says, I'm not interested. So now in my dynamic scripting in Convoso, I know there'll be a button. They'll say, customer says, I'm not interested. If you go to that button, the next thing that will pop up is that really good rebuttal. Oh, so you've looked into it. What didn't you like about it? Right, so it really is a sales tool as much as it is a compliance tool if it's used properly. The second thing is there is this thing, your ideal customer profile. So technology is just getting more and more advanced. There's tons of softwares out there that do this, but you can, and including Colossus being one of the ones that's building information like this, but understanding, I'm talking to a Gen Z from Vermont who owns a Tesla, right? I might pop a different script, right? Then if I'm talking to, he's a boomer, he's in Texas, and he's on a fixed income and he wants to save $30. My scripting might be like, I had one really great rebuttal where the guy kept saying, I don't know about climate change, but I do know about 30% credit and saving $50 a month. And he said that sentence over and over again, and it really worked for him in Texas, right? So you got to get granular into your data and find out what's working, and then you can increase sales by having the appropriate script in the appropriate location with the appropriate ideal customer profile, and dynamic scripting will help you walk your employees through that. So what I always tell the call center reps are like, you don't memorize the script. You don't know a script, you don't memorize the script, read what's on the screen, because the screen is tested, used AI, analytical, and it's going to give you the best chance of a sale.
That's so interesting. Are there other things that you've learned, phrases or things to say or not to say? I mean, that you could think of off the top of your head?
So I think, so first of all, almost nowhere does it work to talk about climate, to talk about green energy. It's such a political issue. So anything political too, even when we say something like, oh, we've got bipartisan support, people have a strong feeling about their beliefs in politics, especially in this day and age. So anything political we stay away from. If there's some other things too, where it's like saying the word free, it's never good. Like one, there's a lot of compliance rules around it. And two, customers just don't believe it, right? It's like, oh, you're going to give me a $30,000 system for free, right? It has a negative sentiment to it. So, and they actually respond okay to like, hey, some people have little to no upfront costs, right? That's it, because that's a reasonable thing that they can wrap their head around, right? And then also, if you're adjusting the lead gen in the front, we don't go into the weeds with them. That's another piece of advice. Like, we should not be talking about microinverters. We should not be talking about financing options. We should leave that for the solar specialist.
Great. No, that's a lot of good information. I do want to mention with Convoso, we're recently coming up with a new integration in terms of a Google Calendar integration within the product, so that agents and admins can set meetings and manage their day directly through Convoso. That's something new that we're coming up with. So I know when it comes to scheduling, obviously with solar, it's a big part of what's done. Do you have anything to add in that regard, Heather, or anything around scheduling or best practices or anything what you've seen that works, that doesn't work?
Yes. So one of the biggest reasons leads are not turning into sales is because they're either not qualified or their level of interest. So Convoso has several different systems and things that help you. One, you can integrate Google Earth or Project Sunroof into Convoso. So I now have my agents who are looking at the home when they're speaking. A lot of times the script might say something like, "Oh, I see your home at 1234 Smith Street. What a beautiful red door you have," right? And that counts as confirming their address, right? Because now you've looked at a feature and they've said, "Oh yes, we painted it 3 years ago." The other thing you can say is, "Oh, I see that you have a tree in the back of your house." So now you're looking at shading. So it can be very conversational. It's a great tool to have, and they don't have to have two screens. A lot of software, other software products, you have to look at Google on one side and then you have to have the product there. The other thing is zip filtering, like we talked about how important that is, dynamic scripting specific to solar. And I know you guys have some AI stuff coming up in the near future that I think will be really relevant to us as well.
Yep, we'll talk about that more as it's coming. It is our intelligent virtual agent. I do want to bring it home to speed to lead, which we have talked about, but really, to me, speed to lead is something I'm very passionate about in the sense that everyone knows, yeah, you want to get in contact with the consumer as soon as possible, but there's one thing to do that with a small number of leads and another when you're talking about tens of thousands of leads, right? Because what we oftentimes find is that nobody ever says we don't want more leads. Every call center we've ever spoken with say, "Do you have any lead sources? Can you refer us to anybody, any lead providers, lead generators? You name it, they want it," which is great. But what we find is that depending on what dialer you're using, these leads get stuck, right? You have new leads, you're dialing them, the next day you want to dial them again, then you have another batch of new leads coming in and more leads, and so they get backed up. And it's really important to pay attention to how your dialer can get through those leads in as quick of a manner as possible. But how do you prioritize the new versus aged leads and just ensure that you're consistently going through all of them, which is what we see is not happening. The call attempts stop after some number of attempts, and they get priority to new ones, and the aged ones are not getting dialed. So anything more you can add to speed to lead, beyond?
Yeah, so I think it's about a couple things, your hopper settings, right? So the very first thing is, especially if you're not buying exclusive leads, which in a call center that's high volume dialing, you're usually not buying exclusive leads. Interestingly enough, I've been in enough companies that the exclusive leads almost never work for large call centers because they're power dialers, and they work much better for a small mom and pop that maybe only has 5, 10, 15 people on the phone. So just keep that in mind when it comes to exclusive or non-exclusive. What you have to think about is the consumer journey. So I think if we always start with the consumer in mind and try to think like them, right? This is the best part. I've seen a lot of people write algorithms and then I say, would you pick up a call based on your algorithm?
Right.
So to understand is if you're online and you're looking at panels, you're looking at solar panels, you've entered your shade, your bill amount, you have true intent, right? So when you hit submit, speed to lead, the first person who calls you, you might take 2 quotes or 3 quotes, but that first person that calls you is the best chance of sale. So no matter what, that first, the new lead status, attempt call 0, needs to go to the front of your hopper. That's what's going to get you within seconds. Other problems I see people make is they want to pass it through Salesforce and then into their own homegrown system and then ping over here. They've got leads conduit in the middle. That's killing 7 seconds. Guess what? Sunrun has them on the phone already. You've wasted too much time. So speed to lead is about immediately getting it through, putting it at the front of your hopper and dialing it fast. The challenge is if you have tons of data and you're not working through all of it, if you have that new lead go to the bottom of your hopper, you've lost the lead. So it's about hopper placement and not having any middleware in between that slows the process down. When it comes to the rest of the data, I've consulted for a lot of companies and I walk in and their contact rate is 3% or 6% on a source of new data, or even, I just got the lead yesterday and I have a 6%. So something's wrong there. And what it almost always is either they've called that person 10 times the first day and now they're getting marked and flagged and reported, or they don't, it's a shared lead and they're not treating it like a shared lead, so they didn't get speed to lead. So I think the best tip I can give you is go back and think about the consumer, understand where they opted in, what it looks like, what their level of intent is, and then think like yourself. How would I want to be contacted in this scenario? And then write your algorithms. But again, the last most important thing is watch it on the dashboard. If you're not watching your list conversion report, you're losing thousands and thousands of dollars a day.
Oh, great point. I mean, I think that really is the big message that gets lost a lot of times, right? Put yourself in the shoes of the consumer, and will you respond to
Yeah, would
that
you
type
do your own thing? The other thing is like the world is just changing. Like, you know, we can see it with the laws, we can see it with Gen Z, God bless their souls. It's going to be a different world soon. And what that looks like is they're demanding that we speak to them in a language they want. And a lot of that is going to be technology and not as much aggressive dialing. So the more you can get ahead of that with this changing of the guard happening, and that looks like having great digital sources, understanding how to generate your own leads, building a beautiful customer journey, right? Where they're not bombarded with a bunch of sales calls. And that's back to omni-channel again, right? And really thinking about your brand and the message that you're bringing to the consumer, because the younger generations are demanding different results. The good news is they're really pro climate change. So I think that, again, we're at the beginning of the sun rush right now. Never been a better time to be in solar, but we have to meet them at the level in which they want to speak to us. And that is through different forms of marketing now.
Yeah, and I think what gets often lost is the hammering them as much as possible in the first few days, and then you kind of sort of give up. But what you can do in Convoso with what we call workflow dialing is set it to a point where you might call it several times in the first week, but then maybe try in 3 weeks or in a month and a half, 2 months. You don't need to stop calling, but don't bombard them. And having the ability to automate that really helps you do that at scale when you have tens of thousands of leads, where those people might still be interested in that, at a later time. And you can just set that setting in the dialer where it puts it in over a longer period of time, along with a text message maybe following up again, right? You can do that. You don't have to do it all at once. If they don't bite the first X period of time, first week, don't give up, but don't abuse the consumer. I think that's the bottom line.
That's why the contact rates and companies, when I pop in, are 3 or 6%. It's because they've called them so many times that they know to avoid their phone for a while. But the other thing I would say is too, it's what you're saying to them when you text them 2 months later or 1 month later. Because if it's a semi-exclusive solar lead, you can assume that one of the other companies got a hold of them and they got a quote. So maybe your text message 2 weeks later is like, hey, just hoping to give you a competitive quote on solar before you go solar, right? Making sure you're getting the best deals. Did you know Solar 123 typically quotes 30% under the major solar companies, right? So it's the content. And then other key factors and things we've been learning is if someone clicks on a link to your website, to your lookbook, to whatever you're selling, they click on a link to a banner ad, they're like 80% more likely to sit, which means they've had some user engagement with you, so they're more likely to actually sit for a sale. So having that kind of knowledge as you're going through this like omni-channel approach helps you figure out who to target that's most likely to say yes again. So think about the perfect scenario. I know it's a millennial, they're a homeowner, they drive a Tesla, their roof has a sun score that's viable for solar, their name's on the title, their credit has been checked. I know all this about the person, they've opted in. I'm going to market this person way different than my low intent person trying to win a gift card, right? So the more information you understand about your consumer and set smart rules for sales scripting and for marketing practices, the higher likelihood of sales. So not as much volume, call a million people and set 1%, let's get a little more sophisticated and call 5,000 people and set 50%, right? That's kind of the future of how marketing is going to work.
Great. So we've covered these, 5 different steps to really be successful. I'm sure there's a lot more, but if you guys can do these 5 very well and just really focus on them, your operation should go from one level to the next. I want to, wrap it up now and just do some Q&A for the audience. Any questions you guys have? We have a few more minutes here. Would love to answer them. All right. All right, looks like everybody is good to go. Anything, Heather, you want to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I would say is that the solarscape is changing in a lot of different ways, right? So it's the different market segments, how people want to be marketed to, and there are things that you're going to need to do to stay ahead of that curve. So there's marketing today, which in my marketing experience, we're still seeing the majority of consumers clicking on our ads that have American flags and save money kind of logos. We expect that the future, as things change, are going to be people who are more pro climate change. So get ahead of this changing of the guards that's happening right now. This omni-channel thing really is the future of marketing. So I don't suspect that there will be 1,000 people call centers cold calling in high volumes in the near future. Between the litigation and how the generational changes are happening, omni-channel is your approach to go. You want to leverage your technology, personalize it. That's one of the biggest things that people get frustrated with. They want a dialer manager who can set it and forget it and not hit anything, and that's just not how it's going to work. You need to know your sources, you need to know your states, you need to know your customer profile, and you need to address your marketing to that. Partner with reputed lead gen companies. Not all lead gen companies are the same. And I think that if you do your due diligence and research, you'll find that some, maybe they cost a little bit more, but their close and set rate is so much higher that it makes sense to partner with them. You always have to look at compliance too. I want to tell you guys, just because I've walked through so many different compliance journeys in my life, is that it's so easy to look at one page and say it's good. You need to ask questions about what affiliates push traffic to that page, so you understand that. Compliance is kind of key and at the front of everything right now. Partner with a great company. I love McMurray Schuster. I know you guys love McMurray Schuster, to do proactive compliance. Like all of our pages, we had them look at them before we let them go live, to make sure that the font, the grayscale font, was dark enough, all the words had the right buttons on it. Optimize your dialing strategy. We talked a lot about that. It's complicated, but once you have a full understanding of what's going on in the system, it can increase sales 30-40% if you know how to do effective dialing strategy, and manage your list and list conversion. And then on closing leads, the biggest thing I want to say is, you need, as a salesperson myself, the more you understand about the customer and the more you give them the information that they need to get to a yes, the more likely you are to a sale. And I think that people look at this product as kind of a shove it down your throat, just take it, it's so good. But there really is no reason to not go solar. There's actually, it's truly a benefit to the consumer, to climate change, to the government. Everyone is pro this, so it's very strange that you should have to convince someone. But if you are, it's because they don't have the right information. So get knowledgeable about your product and sell to their objection, whatever their objection is. And I can tell you, done many studies, the two biggest objections are they think it doesn't look nice. They don't like the curb appeal, which you could put panels on the back of a home instead of the front. But secondly, they don't understand it because it's a complicated product. You know, it's technology, it's financing, it's construction, it's their home that they have feelings about. So understanding those are the two common reasons people reject going solar. Sell against those, or be prepared to sell with them.
Oh, those are two great points. I didn't know that. That's really new.
Great. Yeah, and if you guys, you need help, you need information on either Convoso specifically, dialing strategies, solar sales tips, I am here, I'm available, and I consult. Yeah,
Heather, you have a wealth of information, so anybody that's on this webinar, I would highly recommend that you reach out. There are so many things that can be optimized or changed that will make a world of difference, as you all have heard during this webinar. And so feel free to reach out to her, and hope everybody got a good amount of value out of the webinar. And I think this is it. We're going to wrap it up. Hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Heather, thank you so much for doing the webinar.
It's fun. I look forward to our next one, where I'll tell you all about Colossus and some of the amazing solar things we're doing too.
Sounds good. All right.